In this video, I'm going to show you how to get your spine in a neutral position in both the standing and the sitting position, and then translate that same skill into other movements, activities, and positions. So if you're in that standing position and your pelvis is kind of rotated forward, to get to that neutral position, you're going to have to tilt that pelvis backwards slightly so that you're in a neutral position. And the neutral position is a slight inward curve in your low back. So if you're overly arched like this, you don't want to be like that, because that'll create increased tension. So you need to tilt your pelvis backwards slightly into a neutral position. When you tilt your pelvis backwards, you're going to feel your core naturally kick on, and that's fine. In the next video, I'm going to go over specifically how to engage your core properly in multiple positions to maintain that neutral spine regardless of what you're doing. But in the standing position, you're going to have to rotate your pelvis backwards slightly so that you're in that neutral position. If you're slumped like this, you're going to have to sit up tall, and you may have to kind of rotate your pelvis forward slightly. But the goal is to rotate your pelvis either forward or backwards to get your pelvis into a neutral position. So most of the time in the standing position, if we're relaxed, our pelvis is rotated forward. It just depends on your body structure, but the majority of people tend to have an anterior tilted pelvis in standing, and so we have to kind of tilt our pelvis backwards to get to that neutral position. Okay, so that's how you do it in standing. If you're slumped, you're just going to stand up nice and tall, rotate that pelvis slightly forward. If you feel like you have an increased arch in your back and your pelvis is rotated forward, you're going to have to tilt your pelvis backwards slightly to a neutral position, and now you're good. In the seated position, if we relax in a seated position, we're naturally going to slump, and that pelvis is going to rotate backwards, and there's going to be this roundedness or flat curve in our low back. So in sitting, we want to just kind of sit up nice and tall. That'll rotate our pelvis forward slightly, and you can see here there's that slight inward curve. So if you're sitting in a car, if you're sitting at your desk, sometimes it's a good idea, if we're having trouble maintaining this position, to put some sort of support back here, so that as you naturally relax and you slump, it'll block you. It'll prevent this from happening, and that puts a lot of strain on your back if you stay in that position for a long time. That's why sitting can bother you. So we want to be in that neutral position the best we can, whether we're sitting or we're standing. But that same concept of rotating your pelvis backwards or forwards applies to any position. Okay, if you're in a push-up position and your pelvis is rotated forward like this, you're in that push-up. In order to get it out of that position and into a neutral position, you're going to rotate here. If you're doing a squat and you tend to squat and your pelvis is rotating forward and there's that big arch in your back, you want to rotate your pelvis backwards to that neutral position. So being able to rotate your pelvis either forward or backward is a key movement skill to achieve that neutral spine. And like I said, when you rotate your pelvis backwards, or you kind of tilt your pelvis underneath you a little bit, your core is naturally going to kick on. But the most important part is just getting your pelvis and your low back into a neutral position so that you can engage your core properly. And that's what I'm going to show you specifically how to do in the next video. So in this video, I just want you to practice kind of rotating that pelvis forward or backwards, depending on what you have to do to get your spine into a neutral position. And just make sure that regardless of whether you're standing, you're sitting, you're walking, you understand how to keep your spine in that neutral position so that you can keep a good healthy back and less stress on your spine. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.